my 7-year-old niece just inherited $350K from her grandfather's estate.
Oh, wow.
How should she invest it for her future?
So, okay, David, we can't give you specific investment advice, but we can give you some general things to think about. One thing worth noting is that in most states, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on all states, but in most states, minors can't inherit assets directly. So the fact that this niece is 7 years old, depending on how the assets came to her, will depend on what kind of accounts or what kind of requirements are required to be established. There may have to be some sort of guardianship put in place, or it may have to go into some sort of specific type of trust. And even in some situations we've seen, it may have to go into some sort of guaranteed insurance type policy until she reaches the age of majority. So you need to figure out, okay, in the state in which she lives, what are the requirements or what are the stipulations around minors inheriting assets? Well, then once you kind of get past that part, then you have to ask the question, okay, well, what are these dollars ultimately for? Is this money that she inherited? This could be financial independence money. It could also be first-time home money. It could be first-time car purchase money. It could be education money. It could be for first car money. You will need to define and have a thought with whoever, I'm assuming it's the niece's parents. Hey, what are the goals that we want these dollars to be able to accomplish for her? And then once you have the goals, then you'll be able to back into the appropriate vehicles to use, as well as the appropriate investment strategy to implement to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, this is exactly, as a financial advisor and financial planner, the first things I try to do is I look at a client situation and say, okay, what are the short-term goals? What are the midterm goals? What are the long-term goals? And you'll probably create a financial timeline of what are your best thoughts, and you'll create essentially baskets or different allocations within the structure to account for, so that money is there to provide when those goals reach maturity. And so you could look at this from, and you nailed most of them, Bo, is that for a 7-year-old, the first thing I'm thinking about is quality of life. Is any of this, going to help mom and dad if there's private school or dance classes? Because that's the other thing. There's a legacy. I always like to think when I deal with inheritances, what were the wishes? What were the desires of the person that funded this money? And how do you structure the account to also honor those requests? And that's why I've even had, because you think about the 7-year-old, she'll grow up and one day potentially get married, and you'll still need to keep the structure right so you don't commingle assets. But I kind of wrote down a few big life events. If I was trying to do a financial triage of this 7-year-old's life, I'd be thinking about the current needs and financial obligations between now and when they graduate high school. And then I'd want to know post-education opportunities, because maybe you want to put some of this into 529 assets or other things so they can be working in the background. And then I thought about weddings. I thought about house down payments. And then you have, of course, unencumbered or long-term financial independence. All those things can be accounted for because, that's an incredible legacy building thing. I would also hope that this trust is designed in a way that it doesn't provide too much access too early. Sure. When I tell people, when we go look at estate planning, and hopefully when this trust was structured, I try to create some scarcity of resources, still to provide people access to money to provide good things of life, but not to give too much, because I've often said that if I inherited like this sum of money under the age of 22, I would have probably bought, I don't know, my educated red self would have bought a Corvette as fast as I possibly could have. Probably not been able to afford the insurance. It's just, you have to be careful because, your brain is still developing. You need to have some governance to ensure that you don't squander the legacy and the planning opportunity. Scarcity can be your friend on creating how to use money. Because that's the other thing I always tell, don't just give your kids money. You got to teach them how to be good with money so that money actually has value and purpose and doesn't just get lost and create a lot of waste.